Montague Pensmith was always one to disappear. He'd been doing it for almost 2 years now, and competence was expected in those such as him. There were moments in the last few months when the impulse came again, flaring as embers in a passing fire, hotter than they had any right to be. An impulse to flee, run, grab everything he'd hidden, and find whatever piece he could before that faded to cinder as well. As the guards closed in and his spell cut out, he knew he'd made a mistake. He'd made so many mistakes of late. Bricketshaw was, as would later be corroborated, not bothering anyone. There wasn't much to Hintillan cuisine, too much seafood, and half their cooks had never even touched oil of olive. It was only today, after weeks in the city, that she found what she'd been looking for. An honest Sadani cafe. No one cocked their heads at her attire. No one muttered lizard girl under their breath. They even used real spices, not this Hintillan fare that left your tongue cold as night. She just caught the first scent of proper lamb and rice when the shouting began at the door. She was as surprised as anyone when the manacle clicked onto her wrist. Reagan Khayyam roared. The Hintillan fucker came at her again, but he was dizzy from the first punch. The second took him to the ground wordlessly as something broke. She rolled her fingers once as his friend rushed her, coming low for a tackle. Stupid choice. That's where her knee was. The crunch of bone on cartilage was the best friend she'd ever had, and he tumbled past her in a heap. Reagan turned to the rest of the bar, hands outstretched in a wordless challenge. Then the guards came to the door. Reagan Khayyam grinned. Tomorrow was the day. She'd been waiting, laying the groundwork for months now, and there was no going back. A simple enough job for a professional such as her, but something fell off. It was all so clean, so neat. Things were never so simple. Her musings were interrupted by someone calling her name from the doorway. She sighed as she folded the note hidden in the estate's daily produce delivery. Holding it over the candle on her desk, the brief flare of burning paper cut the shadows over her face even deeper. Arranging herself, she stood to answer the call of someone else's name. There were many stories here in the city of Hintilla. A champion burdened with a mantle unasked for yet given freely. A hungry ghoul of a man, his face taut in a frozen grin, and the criminals who would cross his path soon. A pair of brothers trying to bear the weight of their father's name. There were, of course, other stories in other lands. Some that would yield little, some that would drag the world to its knees. But here, in the last jewel of a crumbling empire, were a few of these stories. What effect they will have, however, is yet to be written. Stories such as these, who can say how they will shake the world? Who's to say in times like these?
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Diana.
And welcome, listeners, to, I don't know, what are we calling this segment?
That would have been good to know beforehand.
Yeah, it would have been, wouldn't it, huh?
DM's Corner? People like corners.
People do like corners. So, hi, I'm your producer, and this is your DM, Andrew.
Hi.
You have 3 running campaigns and might be about to add a fourth. So Andrew is an expert DM.
Yeah.
And he's created this...
Some would say a fool. Some would say a fool.
Well, a fool in man's shoes, yes, but still, a fantastic DM. And he has created this beautiful world for us. So, Andrew, tell us a little bit about your world and Hintilla and what it was for, and just tell me a little bit about it. I know we covered some of this on our other hit podcast, It Could Have Been Great, but there's probably people here who haven't listened to that. So, give us the brief intro to what this setting is.
Sure. So, Hintilla is, at a glance, it is a setting of a world largely in decline. The long and short is that it was a sort of a two superpower continent, a dwarven and a human empire that largely maintained a balance between the two. However, around 100 years in the past, there was a cataclysmic event known nowadays as the splintering of the plane when essentially migratory dragonborn tribes destabilized the dwarven empire, and the resulting cataclysm in the final climactic battle left things a bit tense, and a lot of people were dead or sad, and
as you do.
Yeah, the Dwarven Empire collapsed collapsed as a result of this, and then it's been around 100 years since then, and the human empire continues to barely survive. But there are a few notable exceptions as political power begins to move from a less centralized national scale into a more of a local concentration, specifically in the hands of the dukes and the counts of the empire. One such duchy is Hintilla. It is the city and the duchy of the same name. It is very, very prosperous, even in a time of decline. Hintilla is known as the jewel of the empire, and it is here that our story takes place. As the world around it declines, Hintilla exists for a number of reasons, but we get into that sort of in the course of the game.
Yeah, that's spoilers, but yeah. So Hintilla originally just started out as your one-shot setting, like. The rest of the world was just where you ran campaigns in general, but Hintilla was specifically for one-shots, as I understand.
Yeah, so originally, this campaign setting it's very important to me and my brothers. This is sort of a campaign super setting that we've been kind of playing around in for a number of years. Really, like, the first campaign that I ever ran was set in this world. However, I am running another campaign in this world on the other side of the continent currently, but with this group, Hintilla was originally a one-shot setting. It was whenever someone was in town and wanted to play, or whenever we had an off week in my other group, we would just get together and make some characters and run an adventure. Sort of my original intent behind it was to build kind of this overarching meta plot and eventually unravel the layers of this particular setting and the city until eventually have a climactic final, like, super session, get everybody together for, like, 8 to 12 hours, and anyone who had played could not only join, but they would pick one character that they wanted to play.
Yeah, because you have a lot of, like, regulars, like your brothers, for example, and a lot of your friends have, like, 4 or 5 different characters running around in this city at this point. Hell, even I do, and I am in this one, so.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I would take over these player characters, and I would run them in the meantime. So, for example, or like if you had a character in one session, you may encounter, when you play in the next one, your character may encounter theirs.
Right.
And, it was kind of a fun, like, where are they now? Like, half where are they now? Half of me trying to see, like, how it all played out with these different characters. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
However, that plan, like so many of my plans, was aggressively derailed by this group.
Yeah, so Andrew got me involved because he's a fool. I get really invested in things. I had never gotten invested in D&D to this degree, I will admit. I did not see this coming.
I don't think any of us really did.
No, none of us saw it coming, but I was DMing a very light, goofy group just as an excuse to get all of my friends to hang out. And one week, we were missing, like, half of our players, and so I was like, okay, well, I'll wait to run, and then Andrew was like, well, why don't I run a one-shot, because I'm Andrew, and I run all the D&D.
Yeah, so it had been a hot minute.
Yeah, so we did that, and then we all got pretty invested after the first session, like, not to the degree that we are now, where we're making a podcast out of it. We recorded it for posterity, because that's just a habit that we all have. And now we've been playing for a year now. This month is our birthday for the campaign. We have about, 70 hours of recorded sessions.
Everybody came to really like their characters and some of the NPCs.
It got to a point where we were so invested in this game, and I was so busy that we ended up this became the main game after like 6 months.
The overall interest was high enough that we were like, you know what, let's just make this into one of the weekly sessions.
And now we play this game every week, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and
we cry a lot.
There's a lot of crying in this game.
It is also
not
funny.
For the first.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's funny and there is fun, but it's we're definitely a bunch of goobers and
we're a bunch of hardcore role players, and we get really invested. And even when we're being, crying and stuff, sometimes it still is funny. But
that's sort of the origin of it. It was originally a one-shot setting, which the goal was originally to tell sort of this meta, like, overarching plot, and have character actions influence it as we went. Just that way we could, and originally it was just it was a way to like keep in touch with people. And originally I wanted to have, like I said, everybody sort of come in for one grand finale. And then
I started imagining too hard, and then things got serious.
and which was a lovely surprise, I think, for all of us. Mm-hmm. And then the other characters kind of like this cast, which has all been kind of built up of like maybe 3 or 4 other one shots at that point. They all became NPCs in the context of this world.
Yes.
And so it was kind of cool to have like this colorful cast of characters who the party sometimes interacts with, sometimes meets, which I was not the creator of, and sort of how to work them into this story and into the setting that I've built.
I think you do a really good job with it.
Thank you.
And as someone who has like heard you play my characters, you play most of mine better than I do. So like, I think you're probably doing very well with everyone else's too.
I hope so. I really do.
So that's how the setting came to be, kind of how we all got involved, and then I got invested, and then we kind of took over, and now Andrew has to make new settings for his one shots because we ruined everything.
A little more complicated.
A little complicated.
In a good way. In a good way.
Let's talk about some characters, because there's stuff that because we were not intending to do this as a podcast. There are things that don't get explained. There are things about our characters that we all knew because we had kind of created them as a group, that we don't ever explain in the course of the podcast. And so I wanted to put that out here so that you guys aren't really, really confused jumping in.
Just because like a lot of it was kind of like sussing things out in between sessions. Like we never really go into like a ton of Reagan's history for a while, but then by the time we actually get into it, like...
By the time we get into it, Andrew and I had like hundreds of pages of fucking backstory for her.
Essentially, we're hoping that like this can serve as a
way to bridge the gaps that there are.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Reagan. So Reagan is my beautiful revenge gremlin. She is 22 at the start of the campaign and is still 22. And she is the metric by which we measure all other characters' ages. I think several times in podcasts we will be saying, oh, that character is 1 year older than Reagan, or 5 years younger than Reagan, or whatever. So Reagan's 22, and that's the only age you really need to remember.
Everyone else is in relation to
It's just
Reagan.
all in relation. So she was a child soldier. She was drafted at 14.
Specifically, Reagan was part of her family were recently elevated nobles in a rebellious city.
Seceded duchy.
Yes, of Gothric, which is in sort of the northwest corner of the Amanor Empire, which takes up sort of the southern third of the mapped out main continent in this world.
Yeah, we'll throw up a map either on the Twitter or our website, nerdification.media, at some point in the next couple of weeks. So Reagan is from a country that seceded from this empire. She was drafted very young because they were losing the war and they needed to bolster the numbers any way possible. So they instituted a draft of literal children. 13, I think 13 was the age that we decided on.
Yeah, 13 and higher. It's someone from every family.
And Reagan had kind of, since she was very little, very much idolized her dad, who was career military, and her older sister, who was career military, so she just did that. So they lost the war. That war was 8 years ago now, at the time of the campaign?
Yeah, at the time of the campaign.
And the Duke of Hintilla, Erwin
Archduke.
the Archduke. There are many dukes. There is one Archduke. The Archduke Erwin von Templer led the final decisive charge that was what ended that rebellion, essentially, also killing Reagan's dad and sister in the process. Mm-hmm. So she ran with a rebellion from that spawned off of the initial rebellion for 5 or 6 years.
Similarly to the new trilogy in Star Wars, it went from a rebellion to a resistance.
Yeah, and so she ran with the she was in a prisoner of war camp for about a year, and then she was liberated by the resistance, ran with them for 5 or 6 years, for a while had her own squad, was the leader of that. When she realized that they were never going to win, she decided that she would go out blazing and get some revenge. So she left her squad and went south to Hintilla to kill the Archduke and his wife, because she was also there.
It did take Reagan a while to get down south.
It took her about a year. I think she went back to Gothric for a little while first, tried to find her family, and then when she concluded they were dead, it
was one of those sort of like, is there any reason to not do this?
Yeah,
and she had like a bucket list almost of like reasons not to, and just ticked them off one by one.
Pretty much, yeah. It was like reasons to stay alive, and then it was like, well, nope, baby sister is dead, older brother's dead, mom dead. So she went to Hintilla to kill an Archduke and die.
And it has not been going great because, fun fact, it's hard to find and kill the Archduke he's a very powerful man.
Yeah, they don't let you just walk into his house
with a knife. It's weird.
It's very weird. So yeah, that's what despite the whole revenge quest thing, she's more of an Inigo Montoya type. She has dedicated her life to revenge, and she does have a very angsty backstory, but also she tends to be pretty affable. She's very friendly, but kind of in that bitter way of someone who has nothing to lose. You know?
There's definitely like a detached element to Reagan.
Especially early on. So yeah, that's Reagan.
So next up, the resident twink.
Yes, Montague Pensmith. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, Montague is played by Katie. She is our social media guru. As well as a very talented, very, very talented artist.
It's true.
Yeah, but Montague is a half-elf wizard around 18 years old. And part of the reason that like Reagan has sort of a lot of moving pieces. Monty, most of it does come up in the actual course of the campaign. I worked with Katie on taking this wizard boy into a character for this campaign.
But yeah, he's a booky wizard boy. He likes books.
Yeah, he's very, very, very bookish.
Eloquent but awkward.
Yeah, very eloquent, very awkward. He's very much. I would describe him as someone out of a Jane Austen book.
I can see that.
Except he's that kind of bumbling, affable, sweet character who, like, is kind of pushed by the wayside until he's married off to one of the cousins.
Right. And then you see on Tumblr a lot of discourse about how he's the most underappreciated character.
Yeah, he's no Mr. Darcy. And not to say that Monty isn't a quality character, but to say that Monty does not have that quiet, brooding...
No. And don't worry, fans. There are Mr. Darcys in Hintilla, because Andrew loved him some sad boys.
Oh, there's one thing you can count on me, it's to make, some would say, a needless amount of sad boys.
But I love it.
It's a little much at times. However, Monty has come to the city under relatively unknown reasons.
He knows, but
he knows, but he tends to move around a lot. And what's important with Monty is that at the beginning of the campaign, he's been in Hintilla for a few months now, and he does not stay anywhere for too long. And he sort of holed himself up in the Grand Library of Hintilla, which is a place of great and grand learning and a lot of books, which he's very at home with. The biggest thing with him is he is very skittish.
He is very skittish. He's
especially at the beginning.
A feral kitty cat.
Yeah, especially at the beginning.
We love him. Barika Cha is my wife's character, and she is a kobold, and kobolds are just a another race in this. I think all of the monster races are just another race, or a lot of them.
Yeah. Just a quick a quick aside about that.
Yeah.
Because it is sort of important. There are a few larger world building notes within here.
Where Andrew deviates from standard 5e.
I'm not what I would describe an essentialist when it comes to character races. I do not believe in... We actually don't have alignments in this campaign. I personally don't play with any inherent alignments to, especially races. Goblins are not inherently evil. Kobolds are not inherently evil. It is a very heavily homebrew setting. It is completely original, and other than that, there is a bit of an age crunch when it comes to this setting. So elves, for example, do not live 700 years. They live a few decades more than humans, but for the most part, that's just a way to increase political instability. So that way we don't have... And also because it's really weird when someone's like, I'm going to romance this elf. They're 400 and I'm 20. And I'm just like,
that puts
this
Diana off real bad. So I appreciate the age crunch.
Yeah, but yeah, those are the major points.
Anyway, so what part of that is that kobolds are just a race that was available to play, and Julia was familiar with kobolds from other campaigns we had played.
And there are like certainly racial prejudices.
Yes,
but primarily those are reflections of those are primarily reflections of the power systems that are at play within the context of the world, rather than the evil god of the kobolds has made them incapable of the love that other mortal races feel. Like, I'm not about that. It's boring. It's not fun. It's not
especially
because
if there's one thing Brika Cha does, is she loves the lot.
Yeah, Brika is a
team
kobold
mom from day one.
Yeah, Brika is a kobold rogue. She's from the Sadan Desert, specifically the capital of the Sadan Desert, which is called Solosia. It is the second of the 3 grand duchies of the wider empire, which is called the Amanor Empire. And Brika is someone who grew up with a very large family, was always kind of pressured to settle down. She's in her late 20s, and there just sort of came a point where she was helping to organize, trying to advocate for some more workers' rights when things got a little tense, a little hot in Solosia, a little hot in the desert, and Brika needed to move out, needed to move away for a bit so that things could lie low.
Just nothing crazy, but she was a social justice kobold, and sometimes that you get a little into your activism, and you got to go just chill for a bit.
Yeah.
So she ended up in Hintilla kind of on a soul-searching journey.
Yeah, and she finds herself here the same as everybody else. And Brika is as Diana said, definitely team mom. She is very kind, very caring,
very good at picking locks.
Oh yeah, excellent at that. She has quite the skill at that. That is Brika.
And then our last is actually not going to be showing up in next week's session, but she will be here soon, is Wisteria, who is Sarah's character.
Yeah, Wisteria is... It's hard to talk about Wisteria without...
Yeah, because ain't nobody knows anything about Wisteria. Her whole thing is she's mysterious.
Yeah,
mysterious,
I know a lot about Wisteria, but she plays things very close to the chest.
Yes,
she's
and
secretive.
We meet her working as the tutor of a noble girl in the city.
Yes, we meet her in the second session proper that we played.
Yeah.
The original one shot that I had planned ended up being a 2-shot, and that's how we were able to get Sarah in the mix. And it's always great to have Sarah play, but B, it is good because Sarah is an experienced D&D player and is no offense to the party. I love the party, but sometimes you need someone to steer people in the right direction.
Yeah, and sometimes we need someone who actually knows how to play D&D.
A little bit.
I like to think I do get better over time.
Oh yeah, no,
it being able to play D&D.
Yeah, no, it is one of my proudest accomplishments in this game is that you entered into it going, ha ha ha, I don't care about D&D. Mm-hmm. I don't even know how to play this game. D&D, what's that? And now you're a tactician.
I'm producing a podcast.
You're producing a podcast, and you're like the party tactician, and I'm just sitting over here, just like smiling like someone who won a bet. Really,
I'm touched, and you kind of did.
I kind of did. I've been on this creep for a while of trying to get Diana into D&D, and there was a lot of resistance for a long time.
I mean, there was a lot of paperwork in 4th edition, Andrew.
There was, but
also I wasn't ready emotionally, but then I was, like, 5 years later. But yeah, no, I love this game a lot, and I appreciate you letting me play in your world, even though I was a very uncooperative player for a while. I think
you were fine.
Thanks.
Y'all approached the game in a very different way than I think I was expecting, and that's been very refreshing for a number of reasons. But no, this is a campaign which continues to surprise me, and that is very, very nice about it.
I'm glad to hear that, because sometimes I feel like I'm like, I've played right into Andrew's machinations, and
no! Don't get me wrong. You for sure play into my machinations.
I do. Because you can read me like a goddamn book.
Look, there are only two players in this group that surprise me.
Well, Sarah, because Sarah is completely inscrutable.
Yes, and the other one, well, that's for the future.
Yeah, because we get another player later.
Spoiler, Diana, you can't say it.
I can't.
You gotta just hint at it and just be like,
okay, so we might get another player later. Who's to say?
No, it's too late. It's too late now.
Who's to say?
Use to say.
Times like these.
Use to say. Use to just say it.
Well, podcast is canceled. It's
over.
Podcast
canceled.
Just pack it up. I've been mixing for like 50 hours, but it's done. It's over. Goodbye. No, I'm just kidding. We love you.
Love you too.
And yay. All right, cool. So I guess we'll wrap this up, and we will be releasing bi-weekly starting next week. So first episode will be going up on Wednesday, the 13th of February. So don't miss it.
Because it's good. And just as sort of a quick sign off, there's a lot of D&D actual play podcasts out there right now.
It's a saturated market.
We are just one little podcast and one little group, but I really hope that y'all swing by or give it a shot. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It is by no means a perfect podcast.
No.
It is by no means a perfect group. It is often messy and awkward, and we're always trying to figure stuff out as we go. But I think that in times like these, especially in the real world, when a lot of us feel, especially younger folks, feel kind of powerless and feel sort of helpless, I think that that's the time that stories like this are meaningful, when we can look at this, at sort of the difficulties we're facing in the world, and maybe for a little while, every week or every other week, we can live in a world wherein our actions do have consequences and we can make a change. And I think there's something nice about that.
And I think it's really it's a beautiful game, and it's been very cathartic. Yeah, but if you're not too concerned about min-maxing and people knowing the rules of D&D, I think you'll have a really good time.
But I do know the rules of D&D. And I do know how and I can min-max if I need to.
Well, the party can't. We refuse. I refuse to. I can now.
You refuse
nope.
to. It's a time.
I commit to my roleplay choices. But anyway. So thanks for doing this little explanation, and we'll see you guys next week with the first episode of Masks and Martyrs. That's not how we say it.
We're gonna work on that, but thanks to everybody who listened to this, and hope you stop by.